Shocking videos released by Project Veritas confirm a story published in the Wall Street Journal only a few days ago. Customs and Border Protection are detaining migrants, including children, under a bridge, with many being made to sleep in the dirt. This video, man, what Project Veritas has published is pretty horrifying stuff. Look, there's a lot that I can defend because sometimes life is hard. Donald Trump was not putting kids in cages or concentration camps. First and foremost, they were set up by Obama. And what should we do? Have the kids wander through the desert? No, unfortunately, this is the rock and the hard place we find ourselves between. And some of these children were found wandering the desert, so perhaps taking them to a detention facility made sense. Perhaps it made sense for Donald Trump to vet the families to make sure these children weren't being trafficked or used as props by adults so they can claim asylum, say, oh, my children, which some of them do. Joe Biden is not wrong either. Joe Biden running these facilities where children are being detained and held, they are not concentration camps, and he seemingly has no other choice. Now, perhaps I'm wrong about that. Perhaps Trump and Biden both had a choice. From what I see and what I understand, I don't know what else you do. The children should not be just cast out into the desert, so they're going to be detained. As for this video, man, it's shocking. But I'll tell you this, the problem is Joe Biden. I know. And many people are going to say, aha, hypocrite. You know, under Donald Trump, there are people staying under bridges as well. Yes, but under Donald Trump, he was actively trying to stop this. He didn't make the facilities, and he was actively saying, do not come to the border. In fact, he was telling people to stay in Mexico. The Remain in Mexico policy helped to slow down and effectively stop much of this surge. People were still coming to the border. They were still trying to get asylum. Sure. But the problem now is that Joe Biden is creating this sense of urgency in many of these illegal immigrants and these children. You better come now if you want the opportunity. And that's what they told ABC and NBC. So the problem isn't that CBP has nowhere to put these people and now they're under a bridge. Don't get me wrong. That is a problem. It's horrifying. But the root cause, it's political inability. Joe Biden needs to be stronger on his messaging, and maybe he needs to implement those Trump-era policies to get these numbers back down. Instead, they'll keep coming. And then what do you think CBP will do? More horrifying circumstances like this. Look, I don't want to see these kids in these migrant facilities. They're not cages. They're not concentration camps. I don't want to see them there. I want to see them in school. I want to see them taken care of. And I want to see them find the American dream. I really do. But it's not being done this way. Let me show you what's going on. And then we'll talk about some of the hypocrisy from Ocasio-Cortez, because all of a sudden now she's flipping her position. The other day she said there is no border crisis. Now she's coming out and saying it's inhumane and horrible and we must pay reparations. Yeah, testing the water didn't work out too well for you, did it? Or maybe it actually did. She threw it out there to see what the left would say. And then when it reacted negatively and said hypocrite, she's like, no, I'll call out Biden. Sure. And I want to show you what was going on during the Trump era and talk to you about root problems and how we deal with this. Project Veritas, in their latest expose, secretly recorded video shows migrants, including children, held under bridge in makeshift Customs and Border Protection Processing Center, enduring inhumane conditions at southern border. New CBP insider provides never before seen footage of the conditions illegal immigrants are facing under the Anzalduas International Bridge in McAllen, Texas. Migrants of all ages can be seen lying on dirt in tight quarters with only space blankets provided for warmth. For those not familiar, these are called Mylar blankets, and it's like a thin foil that helps keep the heat in. The story comes on the heels of Project Veritas's exclusive images from a detention center in Donna, Texas, which eerily mirrors the conditions at the Anzalduas International Bridge. A brave insider felt compelled to record and send never-before-seen footage to Project Veritas in an effort to illustrate the inhumane conditions illegal immigrants, many of them minors, face while in custody. The area under the bridge was converted into a makeshift processing center for CBP due to the overflow of normal detention facilities near the southern border. I want to stop. Whose fault is this? I don't blame CBP for not having the resources or the ability to deal with this. If a fire broke out and we were watching a building on fire and the firefighters couldn't put it out, I wouldn't blame the firefighters for the fire. I'd ask, what started the fire? And while I certainly want these children in better conditions, and I think we all should make demands of such, improve the conditions for all of these kids that are being held, while at the same time, we must make sure we are not increasing the pull factor. That's what they call it. That's when Joe Biden comes out and says, come on, man, no deportations for 100 days. And they're like, whoa, I better get there now. I want each and every one of these immigrants, illegal immigrants, to have the American dream, because this is the greatest country, isn't it? And these people, not every single one, but many, are willing to climb mountains and traverse vast swaths of desert to get it. I respect that. However, there's a legal process for a reason, because it is dangerous, and we don't want unnecessary death, and we don't want to be panicked and scattered trying to bring these kids into some kind of processing facility, not knowing who they are, where they are, who's manipulating, who's trafficking them. We can't just leave the door open. Human traffickers, really nasty people, are exploiting these kids. CBP needs to stop them and make sure these kids are doing okay. But I am sick and tired of the left. You know why? Because all that really matters to them is that they're going to earn their brownie points by tribalistically complaining about one thing or another. All right, let's go to what AOC is saying about this. Well, okay, but first, let me show you. This is a huge story. A lot of people want to challenge the credibility of Project Veritas. They just got us video footage from a brave insider backing up, confirming a report from the Wall Street Journal in a Texas border town. Migrant families sleep under a bridge as local resources are strained. Border Patrol is scrambling to find spaces for families, while some local officials and business owners worry about the effects on their towns. Okay. Ocasio-Cortez. I know a lot of people say, don't talk about her. What's the point? Listen, she has so many followers. It's just a problem, isn't it? AOC slams the inhumane, horrifying, and barbaric conditions at the border under Biden and demands reparations for separated families after she was ridiculed for claiming record migrant crossings are not a surge. She said it wasn't a crisis, and that anybody who says surge is trying to frame it militaristically. It's not a surge. They are not insurgents. It is not invasion. Shut your mouth, you hypocrite. We knew this was going to happen. And if you took 10 minutes to research this and pay attention, we could have seen this coming a mile away. What would you have them do, AOC? I don't fault CBP for the fact that these kids are coming here. I fault the Biden administration and people like AOC for what? Thinking we should open the door and let them just walk in through the desert and collapse and die of dehydration, to be carried in by human traffickers and then sold off to really nasty criminal organizations to allow drugs to flow in. Sorry, man, it's just not right. Donald Trump, for all of his bombastic rhetoric, was talking about real issues that many people on the border know about and are upset about. Drugs. It happens. Trafficking. Even CNN filmed human traffickers. These are not good people. When Trump said that, they accused him of being racist. Perhaps Trump could have used a little bit more tact. But you see, AOC, she goes down and she films herself crying. She claims they're concentration camps. Then she comes out the other day saying it's not a surge. There's no border crisis. It's an imperialism crisis. And then what? Oh, yeah, people got mad at her. People on the left got mad at her saying, where are you at? Why are you defending Biden? So here she comes. Let's talk about this. She says, AOC tore into President Joe Biden's administration's handling of the southern border crisis, calling conditions barbaric and inhumane during a town hall Wednesday evening. Now, I agree with that, in that it is barbaric, it is inhumane. I don't think that is the problem. You see, AOC is ignoring what's actually causing this. CBP can't do anything. If you have a house with 4 bedrooms and 50 people show up and it's a thunderstorm, what are you going to do? Make them all sleep on the floor with a space blanket, aren't you? Because if you don't have the space, you don't have the space. AOC doesn't seem to actually care about solving the problem. She cares about just making it appear like she cares about the poor people so much. Yeah. Quote, as we've seen, there are arrivals and undocumented children, rather unaccompanied children that have come at the border, and this had led to completely inhuman and unacceptable, horrifying conditions of children in CBP custody. And it's unacceptable and it's horrifying, AOC said. AOC didn't go as far as to blame Biden for the crisis. Oh, really? Claiming the president is working to fix the problem. And instead blamed U.S. foreign policy for exacerbating bad situations in Central American countries where the migrants were fleeing. You see, it's not Joe Biden's fault. He's working to solve the problem. duplicitousness. She doesn't actually care. I don't think she does. Or if she does, she's just not smart enough to actually help solve the problem. A lot of problems have counterintuitive solutions. Perhaps what we do is we implement something like a policy where if you want to come and claim asylum in America, you have to remain in the country of origin while you're being processed. That would mean that for many of these people, they'd have to remain in Mexico. Perhaps we could call it something that would refer to how we are protecting them. The Migrant Protection Protocols. How does that sound? Oh, I'm sorry. That's what Trump did. And they said it was unjust and inhumane. Yes, conditions may be worse and for many of these people sitting along the Mexican border. How are you going to complain about concentration camps and barbaric conditions, but you're the one saying bring them in? Is it not more barbaric to have them just wandering the desert? Do you realize that's what happens, right? These people don't come in and go to these cities. Some of them do when they're being tracked by CBP and then, with catch and release. Many of them are traversing desert to try and make it to the interior of the U.S. And we've already heard the stories about what happens to some of these people. And it's sad, man. Look, I love this point that I've said before and I'll say again. The people who, not everybody, who are risking their lives knowing they could die because they dream of America so much. It's brilliant. There was one conservative meme going around where they said for every illegal alien that we allow in, or every asylum seeker we grant amnesty to, we deport one Democrat. I got to be honest. It's a silly notion. I mean, people who live here are allowed to live here. You're allowed to have bad opinions. But wouldn't this country improve greatly if the people who fought tooth and nail to get here, believing in the American dream, were the ones who were leading politics? Instead, what happens is you get these woke leftists who think America is evil and racist and white supremacist and all that other stuff. And they hate this place. They think America's the worst when, in fact, it's the best. Is it perfect? Of course it isn't. Anybody who's going to tell you that is trying to sell you something. No, we got problems and we've had problems, but man, are we good at fixing them. And hopefully we're good at fixing these too. But that's why everybody wants to come here. Man, you will be wealthy and comfortable. What these people don't realize is that flipping burgers at McDonald's for $10 an hour, maybe 12 or 15, depending on where you live. Wow. You're rich. Go down to Mexico. Now, they got some places where people make good money. A lot of places do. You can make six figures as a computer developer living in, say, Ukraine or Romania. But why don't you go to Ukraine? Tell me about how much money they're making. And then you will see why these people who could be scholars in Ukraine, in Kiev, will want to come to the U.S. to flip burgers. Because you make way more money. Way more money. Man, I know people who make like $400 a month in Ukraine, and that's like an average salary. $400. And they work full time. So it's no wonder people want to come here. So what do? We cannot just be the country that says, open the door and wander the desert and come on in and just go wherever. They'll be exploited and taken advantage of. AOC says, I've been in contact with the Biden administration personally. What is different is they're trying to figure out how to find the resources to end this problem. She also claimed that families who were separated during Trump's presidency are owed reparations, period. I don't want to excuse any of this, she said of Biden's policies. We should be doing better now. Say his name. Say Joe Biden's policies. It wasn't difficult for Jonathan Karl, I believe, of ABC to say this is not a right-wing talking point. This is a crisis. And again, I want a shout out to Veritas. It's a huge story. And this, they want to claim all these really nasty things about Veritas and lie and cheat. The story came out in the Wall Street Journal and Veritas got us the proof. I mean, that is legit journalism right there. Now, granted, Veritas has sources. They reach out, they provide evidence. That's journalism, man. That's what it was supposed to be. What do we get now? Activist tabloid garbage. They say the Congresswoman's comments came the day after she was slammed for telling supporters during a lengthy Instagram live to stop calling the record number of migrants a surge, insisting that it's not. You know what, man? It is really, really horrifying that the people who claim to want to put an end to this don't actually care. They don't actually care. AOC does not care. She did this big Twitter thread. She said a lot of people who are just now suddenly horrified at the dehumanizing conditions at our border are the same folks who dehumanized immigrants and helped build these cages in the first place. When we tried to stop this infrastructure over a year ago, we were overhauled by both parties. Stop this infrastructure. Okay. AOC, what do we do then? When a 13-year-old kid is with a 40-year-old man and they aren't communicating effectively or not telling what's going on, or the kid straight up says, that's not my dad. Where do we put him? Do we just open the door and say, carry on, good sirs, and young child, have fun? When a kid wanders in by himself or by herself, what do? Welcome to El Paso, everybody. Open a door and be on your way. Do we just let them go into the street? Or do we need facilities to help them? And because, check this out, when we tried to stop this infrastructure, that I love. Stop the infrastructure. You mean the detention facilities where kids are being held? And now because they don't have enough room, they're putting them under bridges? You mean to tell me that one of the reasons we may be seeing children sleeping in the dirt under a bridge is because you fought to prevent the infrastructure that they could have used to house these children? Absolutely incredible how the stupidity causes the suffering. I just can't stand it, man. It's insanity. Now listen, New York Times, migrants are detained under a bridge in El Paso. What happened? This is from March 29th, 2019. This stuff was happening under the Trump administration. We all know it. The difference? Well, AOC says they're trying to figure it out. No. Trump was working on it. You don't get to come and tell me that this is different now because Biden wants to solve the problem. You're going to pretend like Trump didn't want to solve the problem? I'm sorry, Trump did a lot of things to solve the problem. Did it solve the problem? Not completely. But he was very, very actively campaigning on shutting down illegal immigration because of the pull factor. Joe Biden quite literally campaigned on the opposite. A moratorium on deportations for 100 days. Well, he lost that battle. But that rhetoric tells these people Biden will cut you some slack. It encourages them to come. Now's your chance and you have to do it. So let's be real. I am saddened to see this photo of a man sleeping with their child, presumably, on some gravel. I don't want to see that. I want these people to be happy and successful. Like I said, man, think about what they're willing to endure to find that American dream. Sleeping on gravel with a space blanket. They're sleeping on rocks. Can you imagine what that must feel like? I know what it feels like. I'm sure many of you who served overseas know exactly what it feels like as well. Imagine risking everything with no food, no water, crossing rivers, going through the desert because you know America is the greatest country on this planet. It's your opportunity. It's your chance. And Joe Biden offer up that chance. They're going to take it. I understand. I absolutely understand. But we don't want them to do this because it's not going to work out for them or anybody else. And, in a sense, while I respect that gumption, I do not respect the selfishness and the arrogance, trying to jump the line in front of everybody else who's fighting to come here for the same American dream. There's a reason why there's a process, because we don't want people to wind up falling victim to gangs and drugs and violence and crime and poverty. Poverty breeds crime because people become desperate. That's just a reality that we see across the United States and around the world, that if we can lift up these communities, we can alleviate crime. We can provide for people and find a way for them to provide for themselves. So if we can't control where people are coming and where they're going when they're first entering this country, well, then they could be exploited. It could breed crime and it could make their lives worse. They could end up in jail. They could get deported for committing crimes. We don't want that. We want them to come here and have a good time. Under Donald Trump, I will not say he did a perfect job, but I understand the things that were done. Under Joe Biden today, he's absolutely not doing a perfect job. In fact, he's doing a very bad job with his rhetoric. But I understand, the detention centers. I understand you bring these kids in, you got to track who they are and have them fill out their names and try and understand where they came from, why they're here, who their parents are. We're seeing a major surge in unaccompanied minors. But instead of getting real leadership, we get AOC. Because maybe that's what we deserve, I guess, until we can change the laws. But maybe we can't. Maybe the system is just too insane at this point. The other day, I was talking to Jack Murphy on the IRL podcast, and I was talking about how I, a blanket statement tax the rich. I don't literally mean vaguely just tax every single rich person. Certainly, I don't care about the ultra billionaires and Bezos and his mass wealth, but I also realize wealth taxes don't work, so I don't know what you're going to do anyway. The point I'm making is that the wealthy individuals flood the zone. The Hollywood liberals and progressives in California dump ridiculous sums of money into super PACs to support AOC. So in her district in New York, people can be manipulated into voting for people like her. I'm not a fan. So long as that system is in place, AOC will just say whatever she needs to say to get followers, to make people think she's fighting. And now here she is defending the Biden administration. Oh, the conditions are horrible, but he's trying to solve it. I've spoken to them. Did you speak to Donald Trump's administration? Did they tell you we want kids to suffer? No, I guarantee you the Trump administration would have said we're trying to solve the problem. So I'll put it this way. I think Joe Biden is trying to solve the problem. I just think he's weak. I think Donald Trump's trying to solve the problem. He's a bit over the top, but still strong enough. Now, we have a president who has increased the poll factor or created the perception that there's an opportunity to come in. I certainly think the Biden administration is trying. I certainly understand the difficult choices CBP and the Biden administration have to make when it comes to detaining these kids. So I will defend Biden absolutely in that regard. I know they're inhumane and horrifying conditions. AOC is right in that regard. But you can't just claim all of a sudden now Biden is okay. Sorry. Donald Trump was trying. Joe Biden is trying. But Joe Biden is not as good as Trump. I'll give him respect for trying, but I must criticize and point out the weakness of his rhetoric is encouraging this. He denies it. He needs to accept it. Otherwise, it'll just get worse. And we need to be more active in politics. Otherwise, we'll just get more Ocasio-Cortezes. I'll leave it there, my friends. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. over at youtube.com/Timcast. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all then.